And disturbing video just released yesterday of a South Carolina police officer shooting an unarmed black man after a routine traffic stop. Please note you may find this video unsettling as it contains graphic images. And that was North Charleston Patrolman Michael Thomas Slager firing 8 shots at the back of Walter Lamar Scott as Scott runs away. Mr. Scott died at the scene. The officer claims a struggle ensued after Scott tried to grab his taser. At a press conference yesterday, North Charleston Mayor Keith Summey said the officer will be charged with murder.
I can tell you that as the result of that video and the bad decision made by our officer, he will be charged with murder.
And let's hear more from the mayor.
It goes to say how we work as a community. When you're wrong, you're wrong. And if you make a bad decision, don't care if you're behind the shield or just a citizen on the street, you have to live by that decision. And so we as a city want the family to know that our hearts and our thoughts are with them.
Scott's family attorney, L. Chris Stewart, responded to the news that the officer will be charged.
As we watched the news where the mayor announced that the officer would be charged with murder, everyone in the home just started crying and hugging. It brought a short sense of relief and joy that the distance that we have to travel to try and get justice was beginning, and that for the first time in a long time, an officer was going to be charged.
Okay, so let's bring back former Navy SEAL and former FBI Special Agent Jonathan Gilliam. Jonathan, when you saw that video of the shooting, could you think of any reason whatsoever that the officer had to open fire?
None. There was no apparent weapon. There was no probable cause for the officer to think that the public or himself had any imminent danger of loss of life or serious bodily injury. None. I mean, there was no report that the officer saw a weapon or believed that there was a weapon any time in this. And even though he may have lunged or attempted to grab his taser, it wouldn't have even mattered unless they were in a struggle and he shot him at the time of the struggle thinking that he was going after his gun. As soon as the unarmed individual fled, there's no reason to think that he's moving to a position of cover or he's trying to gain a weapon. There's just no legal justification for that shoot.
I couldn't agree more. And while on the Joe Madison radio show last month, President Obama said that white cops shooting black men is not an isolated incident. Do we have that soundbite?
We just saw the Ferguson report come out. I don't think that is typical of what happens across the country, but it's not an isolated incident. I think that there are circumstances in which trust between communities and law enforcement have broken down, and individuals or entire departments may not have the training or the accountability to make sure that they're protecting and serving all people and not just some.
So, Jonathan, are the president's words ringing true on this, or is the media blowing up isolated incidents because they rate really well on television? Now, that video is graphic, and if you watch it, it's just so senseless, but yet it is gripping in the sense that you can't believe that the officer is actually doing what he's doing. But I guess what I'm asking here is, are you afraid, probably the lack of a better word, that this will somehow be lumped in with Ferguson and Eric Garner, which were 3 totally different cases, and it's going to be, at least from some folks say, see, this is happening everywhere, when really it is an isolated incident?
Well, I think it could have potentially gone that way. But, the difference between here, the Eric Garner case, and even the Ferguson case, the difference is the judicial system worked in the favor of public opinion. And a lot of people, when I say public opinion, I mean the people who are activists and, have a real strong opinion about white officers shooting black unarmed individuals. In the other cases, you had a police department and a judicial system that worked in the favor of the officers. Here, it's clear that the officer was in the wrong, and so the police department acted swiftly and accurately. They did the right thing by firing the individual and charging him with murder. So I don't think there's going to be as much of an uptick from the people that normally voice their opinion. What I'd like to see, though, is more people saying that, yes, this is the way the judicial system should work, is when we identify these things that they take swift action. But unfortunately, I've already heard one person saying that if this happened here, it's probably happened a dozen times over the past, amount of a year. I can't remember exactly how long he was saying. That's the wrong path to go down.
I agree, Jonathan, and thanks for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. So, guys, and I'll start with Heather. Does this finally, and I don't think there's much of a debate on this, but I think this finishes the debate. We were fortunate, again, the wrong word here, but thank God this was videotaped, because then it's the cop says one thing, the victim says another, and we have Ferguson all over again. Here, it's clear and concise, decisive what happened. Should all police officers wear cameras?
No doubt about it. You know, that police officer had no idea that he was being videotaped, and today in the Daily Beast they had an exclusive interview with his attorney, who he had for about 2 minutes before the attorney saw this video and no longer agreed to represent him. It was clear to me from that interview that this police officer had no idea that this existed. Had he known that he was being videotaped, it is pretty likely to me that he never would have shot this guy, because he would have known that he was being videotaped. You know, and already in where this happened, they have already decided that they are going to put body cameras on all of the police officers. This is the nail in the coffin of any argument that you should not do this.
And Rick, this will ultimately, I hear the cost concern around cameras on cops. You know what? It will save money in the end because of all the lawsuits that you'll avoid when this is documented.
No question.
And
Look,
both sides will be more cautious.
And I want to follow up on a good point that Jonathan made, which is what you saw here was the local mayor, the local police department, once they knew all the facts, you couldn't ask them to behave better. And if anybody starts protesting this, they have missed the point. It was a terrible thing that happened, but this is local law enforcement reacting correctly. The one thing that we must think about, had that video not shown up, this officer would have gone free, and that is the lesson we have to focus on.
Absolutely, and I think going forward, and we've talked about this in the show before, with everything, the phones are no longer phones. Phones are cameras, and everybody is using them. Coming up next, did the Russians hack White House computers? And a little later, did President Obama go over the line when commenting on Governor Scott Walker's foreign policy experience? Rick will have some thoughts on that. This is the Daily Wrap, only on Newsmax.